My name is Jethro Seghers. I work for the Higher Education Experiences team based in the education engineering, and I really want to give you like a brief overview of Viva Connections for Education. Maybe the first thing you're going to say is like Viva Connections for Education. What's so different about the education version for Viva Connection? Actually, to be completely transparent and very honest, not a lot. What we're actually trying to do is really provide with Viva Connections a solution for a persona that was never tackled by Viva Connections or the Viva suite as it is today. We know that Viva, as it is really focused on the employee. So what we're trying to do is really go beyond that. And so that's for us, the student. And so let's start with the why real quick and why we're tackling students. One, of course, is that education is super important for us, for me personally as well, and hopefully for you as well, because I will assume that when you have kids, that the quality of your education is something that you care about. And so what we saw, especially in higher education, where we started to look into what are some of the problems that they're facing, is one, that there's a boatload of education tools that students need to use, whether that's in the K-12 space, primary, secondary, or even in higher education. We saw on average that 143 education tools were used, whether that's data about their assignments, their courses, their grades, what the tuition fees were that they need to pay, where they can do loans for library books and resources and stuff like that. And it was really overwhelming in such a way that when we looked at the dropout rates, about 30% of first-year students never become a second-year student or a sophomore student, and that's a lot. And so really what we wanted to do there is kind of start to tackle that. And what is really important there is how strong Viva Connections is in supporting that model. So what we're doing is really looking at, hey, Viva Connections, what would an education version look like? What can we do? And how can we help that to really help our students to connect? And you're probably going to recognize a lot of these words from how Viva has been positioned for the employee, but we really did our best to translate that. And in a bit, I'm also going to show you some of the unique ACE cards that we've built, both from a Microsoft perspective, but also from a community perspective, and how that actually supports that whole model. So the first thing we wanted to do is give students a digital home to start and end their work, which is being a really good student. We also wanted to focus on simplifying the experience by streamlining the tasks and access to the key resources in one centralized place. And then the connection. It's super important for students to feel connected with their organization, with the university that they're a part of, with the schools they're participating in. And that's really where Viva Connection for us was that main hub to really drive that engagement. And so what we've done is, how can we now augment everything that the Viva Connections team is already doing with very unique education functionality, and how can we actually translate that so it makes sense when a student goes to Viva Connections, or however they want to brand it in their own organization, and to make that happen. So what we've done, and the top two is actually very interesting. We went live with those yesterday evening, so it's a very exciting time for us. We're actually releasing two specific cards targeted 100% to education. So if you have kids that are using Teams as their learning management system, or using Teams to drive the education in your area, then this is going to make a lot of sense for you as well. So what we're doing here is visualizing all the assignments and all the classes that they're enrolled in. So that way they can immediately see what is the assignments that I need to start working on, which are upcoming, which are past due. In a bit, I'm going to show you that in a demo with a student as well, how that actually is visualized from an experiencer's perspective. But we also wanted to make sure that we're contributing to this amazing open source community, right? So one of the things I absolutely want to do is thank a lot of you for participating and delivering ACE cards in the samples gallery, because a lot of our customers are using this on a daily basis. I'm just going to call out a few that really are making a lot of usage in our environments. Is like the My Recent Files is in there, the weather is in there, the office locations in there, which we then use as campus locations, transportation cards, all these different open source community driven cards are being appreciated very heavily by the education community. So we wanted to make sure as Microsoft that we also did our work to that. So we're actually looking to potentially bring in the code for assignments and courses in that as well, which we already have from a production perspective. But we also made sure that we had 5 we call them code samples with specific education functionality. So the ones that we are currently submitting to the GitHub repository are tuition fees, library loans, book of space, internships, and scholarships, which I'm going to show you in a bit as well. And it's really designed to be a starting point both for our customers, partners, yourself. So you're totally fine to take the design and start working on it. We've attached sample code to it, so it makes a lot more sense when you start working with it. But it's designed, made by Microsoft designers to the standards of Microsoft design, with the code samples being fully vetted by engineers as well. So you can just immediately use those and make it into your own really example that you want to augment it, right? Additionally, I also want to invite you, if you have ideas for education specific cards, let us know. If you submit some, send me a ping. I'm happy to send that through the marketing machine that our team has to really put some additional visibility on the work that you guys are doing. But again, I cannot stress enough how important for us it is that this community exists, and the examples that you guys build, like every single time when somebody is asking for a specific feature, the first thing I do is actually go to the open source GitHub repository with all the samples in it and immediately start distributing that to all my customers. So let's not kill you guys by PowerPoint and actually go into a true example of how Viva Connections for Education can be used. So this is, for example, the cards that Microsoft has launched yesterday, specifically around assignments. So when we click here on the View All, it's going to use the graph to really pull out all that information and kind of design it in a tab kind of system where we have one, the algebra class with the mind map that they need to work on. What is really cool and what students heavily appreciate is the fact that it's clickable, that it immediately takes them to the right information. We also have the same thing for our courses. And then here are all the code samples that we're in process of actually submitting that to the GitHub repository. So in this case, we have our outstanding loans that students immediately can be informed of. If they want to do an internship, this is some sample data. So we have Accenture, Cisco, ANSYS. We have the ones that they've submitted for. We have our scholarships here, right? So these are all scholarships that they can take a look at, what are recent, applied, all that good stuff. Same thing for booking a space. So this is really for us to show our customers, here's some of the things that are possible for you to do. And we understand, especially in education, the let's call it the ACE development skill set is a growing skill set. A lot of people are starting to adopt the model. They're looking, how can we build our own experiences? But we're fairly new to it. We're not as mature yet as the commercial space, but it's something that is very exciting. It's something that we now can actually address some of the student problems that we have. And like I mentioned, for example, here, the holidays one, I don't know who created it, but it's an amazing one. Pretty much all my customers are using it to show the students what their holiday days are based on their location. And so I just want to say thank you again for all the work that you put in there. If we can ever support you in any way, shape, or form, let me know as well. And that's pretty much all I needed to show. So I know I'm probably under time, so I'll give it to the next speaker. But if you have questions, I will put my email address in the chat as well. Feel free to reach out. Feel free to share ideas, things that you've done. If you have a specific question that is related, for example, to the school of your son or daughter or university that you're working with, let us know. We're always available to help.
Thank you so much. This is something that I'm quite passionate about. I started SPFx in the education sector. So thank you for doing this.